He speaks the language of the players. That's what Fabian Hürzeler claims. And if you look at the numbers, when you compare Brighton's performance last season under Roberto De Zerbi as well as St. Pauli under Fabian Hürzeler last year, I think it's almost very easy to see the similarities. They create as many chances. They carve out the same number of shots. They have the almost similar number of touches in the opposition box. But where they are probably a bit different, and this is probably where Fabian Hürzeler has a bit of an advantage, is that St. Pauli under him were a far better defensive side than Brighton were under Roberto De Zerbi. I mean, a simple example. Last season, it took Brighton 20 match days to get their first ever clean sheet. This year, in just the first game, Fabian Hürzeler guided Brighton to their first ever clean sheet. Is that what we're expecting out of this, a far better defensive side?
Well, I think Brighton have to be better defensively this season than last season. Last season they finished 11th in the table. The season before they qualified for European football. And Brighton definitely have the ambition and the belief that they should play European football season in and season out. And you can't do that unless you're defensively good. So yeah, I think it's certainly an area. But if you look at the Everton game when Brighton played up at Goodison Park, you know, going forward, Brighton were fantastic. You know, the fact that they've tightened up hasn't stopped them going forward either, Lee.
No, I think you're right, but I also think it's a risky stack to compare when he was in the second division in Germany and now he's in the Premier League. This is a far more ruthless league to be in. You make the slightest mistake and you get very quickly punished and people score past you. So you need a bit of time to tell. He's only played one game and there's still a lot of adrenaline and a lot of excitement flowing around the team, and he seems very much a psychologist. Yeah. So I like the way he gets into the mind of the players and tries to understand the person as much as they are as a player. And we'll see. But he's all the right things at the moment. Yeah, I mean, as you alluded to, Lee, the Brighton train just keeps on going. Every time they are faced with a bit of a difficulty, you ask yourself, how are they going to fix this? How are they going to solve it? But somehow they seem to pluck solutions out of the weirdest or the most eccentric spots possible. Why do you think, or what do you think they would have seen in Fabian Hürzeler to be convinced that this is the guy to sort of establish a continuity to the good work that De Zerbi had done before this?
Well, I think if you look at the succession, from Chris Hughton, who did a very good job at the club, to Graham Potter, who took it on another step, to De Zerbi, who moved it on further. Yeah. That's the number one criteria. Our next head coach has to be able to take us further. So what does Super Fab, as they now call him in Brighton, he's only won one game, but he's Super Fab, what does he bring? I think his youth is a real advantage, and he just alluded to that in the interview. I think the fact that his record at St. Pauli speaks volumes. Last season he took them from Bundesliga 2 into the Bundesliga for this season, and he could have stayed there, couldn't he? But he's an ambitious guy, and he's got the chance to come to the Premier League. But listen, Brighton don't solve problems when they occur. They don't. Brighton have already seen it coming before it happens, and that is the key to it. So, let me go back to Chris Hughton when he was sacked by Brighton, for example. So that's 1, 2, 3 managers ago. Chris is a former teammate of mine from Spurs. Chris was involved in Brighton's last game of the season. He went in the next day on the Sunday to have a meeting with the chairman, Tony Bloom, who sacked him. Chris didn't know it was coming. Absolutely didn't know it was coming. And that is what Brighton are brilliant at. They've sorted the problem out, or they've seen the progression, in my opinion, Lee, before it happens. Yeah, and that's what we keep saying, that the train just keeps on rolling. That every manager has raised the standard just that little bit. That they seem to lose 1 or 2 of the best players every season, and they always seem to be able to find a replacement. And the season after, that player's worth 40, 50 million. It's just an incredible outfit.
And the one thing that they always seem to be able to do is that, some clubs, when they chop and change managers, sometimes it also requires a bit of a squad overhaul to fit the new manager's ideas or style of play. But Brighton seem to always be able to find someone to continue with the group of players that they already have at the club. Yeah. That's because the criteria for the incoming new coach is you don't sign the players, you don't make all the choices. We, the club, our recruitment department, we've got David Weir there who fronts that up, a former player.
And, you know, those decisions are kind of taken away from the manager. So truly, he's not the manager, he's the head coach. So the club, in my opinion, Lee, give the manager the resources, the players, and now the head coach sorts them out and develops the team.
The coach just gets to concentrate on the football side. He doesn't have to look at the transfer market. He doesn't have to look at... He knows that that's being taken care of, and the club will find him...
I think they'll consult him, won't they?
Of course they'll say, you know, what about him, what about him? But the club are finding square pegs for square holes, and everybody just slots into position, and they know the role as soon as they come in.